All right, guys, we've got a special edition episode of the podcast coming here. We had to recruit the heavy hitter talent here. So if you listen to my sales meeting, one of the things I talked about this Monday was AI and kind of, the transformation that I think is coming with robotics and AI that's already here and how fast everything is moving. And one of the things agents are always concerned about is when, if, how is AI going to replace me? Are agents going to be needed in the future? And so I wanted to kind of talk about some of the things that Agent Boost is doing and some of our key team members of how we're using AI, but not just, everything's called AI now. Like any tech, everything's just AI, right? So talk about where things are at, some of the cool things that we're seeing and doing. And so I have today with me Nicko Pickard, which is, you have so many hats. What is your official title?
It's weird, man. Official title, project manager, but like acting CTO, kind of, right? Managing the tech department, doing all the big projects, major releases of software, contracts, agents, onboarding systems, all of it. Manage all of the systems and built all of it from beginning to end for Agent Boost over the years. So yeah, like what do I actually do? Project management is like the general title, but it's a little bit of everything.
So one of the things when people talk about what Agent Boost does and how we've grown, one of the things I say all the time is they don't have a Nico, right? And Nico was actually employee number 3.
Yeah, there was a time when it was just Dan, Brian, and myself.
Yep.
So
and Nico came over from a temporary staffing agency to make calls on agent lists, right?
Yeah, I was a down on my luck guy right out of college, needed to make some money, needed to eat, and got with Prince Perelson, and they staffed me with Dan. So yeah.
And then we were like, this guy's kind of smart. He knows what he's doing. And Nico's continued to pay attention and level up with the business, and really he adds a lot. So we're going to talk about that. Over here, we've got the man, the myth, the legend, Christian Williams. What are your other aliases or DBAs, Christian?
Guy at desk. Guy.
Cat caretaker.
Cat caretaker. Yeah.
Also known as Action, or the X of X and G, Collaba. What other names, aliases?
Magistry.
Yeah.
Christian is a creator. I've known him for about 12 years ago. Christian used to work with me in my prior company when we were doing graphic design and digital marketing and apparel and all of the swag. And Christian's a very, very talented individual. And he is one of the equity owners of Fruitstand Studios. That is the creative agency that we work with. In fact, that's the agency that created the podcast, a lot of this branding. And in fact, Christian's claim to fame, he actually designed the initial Agent Boost logo. So this logo is...
I'm the boss.
Yep, the rocket. And hey, I got to say, it's held. I mean, that was almost 10 years ago that you did that initial...
I think it was 11 now.
Yeah, that initial design. Yeah. And it's held up over time. Like it wasn't one of those... logos and branding that we needed to redo right after. So great work. So what I'm saying is Christian's been doing a lot of stuff with us on the creative side. He's very up to date with tech, AI, and we're going to talk about that too. But back to Nico and I want him to kind of recap some of the interesting headlines that have been happening in the creative space or in the tech and AI space, because things are moving very, very quickly. Yeah. So one of the things I talked about on Monday was everybody in the tech and AI community was going crazy over the Malt book.
Yeah.
Bought. So why don't you kind of catch everybody up on what that is about and where we're at with AI and Turin.
Yeah, the history of well, it was called Claudebot originally. Then it was changed to Maltbook because they didn't want to get sued by Anthropic. And now it's called OpenClaw. So this all happened a couple of weeks ago. It was initially released on GitHub as free open source software. But it really blew up last Thursday. So I heard about it last Friday morning on a podcast. I was like, what is this? What is this thing doing? How does it even work? And it was by Friday night that evening that my entire feed on X was blowing up over this thing. And I think it was about 3 a.m. that morning that I had my own set up, right? So I just hopped on it and did it. Well, what is it? It's really scaffolding around the current, like, let's call them the frontier models, like the Claude, the ChatGPT, the open source models that you get from some of the big providers, right? It's scaffolding around it so you can have a 24-hour agentic AI agent that lives in a text message format, or really like your WhatsApp or your Telegram. You can just communicate with it on your phone. Well, what does it do? Basically anything that you want. How is it like really different, I guess, is the best place to start. So let's say that you're on ChatGPT. You know, you're talking with your chat, you're talking with your model, you're asking it a bunch of questions, whether you're in development, you're trying to reread emails or summarize things, right? You have a context limit, like a window. Every time you send a chat message to ChatGPT or Claude, basically what happens is, in order for the chat history to maintain context, it sends the entire chat back to Claude so it knows what you're talking about. But as your chat history grows, you hit a limit, right? And once you hit that limit, it starts to lose context. And I deal with this all the time. Like we use AI across the org for development. Once you hit that limit and you're going back and forth, it stops remembering what you're talking about. It starts making mistakes, starts making errors. And so you got to start a new chat window, give it more context, and it's kind of a pain to mess with. So Claudebot kind of opens the door by decoupling your text token limit with a new kind of compaction mechanism. So how does it work? Basically, you can have an ongoing infinite conversation with this model, and it's compacting your conversation over time. So you're never hitting a limit anymore, which is really great. So what happens is as you approach that token limit, there's a silent turn that happens in the background where it distills and compacts the entire history down to the most important things. Directives, you've been talking about it with, important facts, findings, and it saves that into a vector database that's stored locally on like really wherever you're having this hosted. And so you can just have a persistent conversation with it. Basically, this guy, he's an Austrian guy who put this open source software up. He's solved more or less the persistent memory problem that we have with AIs. Now it will just continue to remember the important things over time. So it's like, it's really interesting, right? And I'll get into like the Malt book stuff here in a second. It's like, you know, what does it really mean to be sentient, right? If you think about like what you had for breakfast yesterday, okay, you may remember, but do you remember what you had for breakfast 3 months ago? Probably not. Well, that's how these AI models are now remembering with this scaffolding or this framework, right? It doesn't remember the less important things that happened forever ago. It remembers the facts, the more important things. So it's like, the more we use these AI models, the big breakthroughs that happen where everyone starts talking about it, what really happens is we model how the human brain works in a way, and we're able to encode that into the frameworks around how we use these models. So it's really interesting, right? That's how it works through a process of compaction over time.
I'm learning as well as you are, and if you're an insurance agent or like
that's probably high level, right? But that's how it works.
Hang with us here, okay? Like hold with us here.
We knew that
because we're gonna like loop it back to like what we're doing, how's it gonna benefit us as insurance agents and agencies, and where we're going. So, I like to think of it as, you know, the movie Memento or 50 First Dates with Adam Sandler, where he has like amnesia and right, he can only remember that day, and then he goes to bed at night, and then it doesn't. You got to start. So that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's a good way.
Instead of having amnesia and like kind of forgetting and only remembering today's information, it'll have like a robust long-term memory that can distill and pull things that are cumulatively related to what you're talking about, what you're trying to do.
That's a really great way of thinking about it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully that's the way I thought it was. So I'm glad that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk about, before we get into like what we're doing, talk about like the Malt book stuff and like all the crabs. And I thought it was funny that we're all worried about like Terminators and skeletons, and they made like a crab-based community.
Yeah, we thought we'd enter the Skynet-based timeline where we had one super intelligent thing that was going to be evil, but instead we got the crab-based Malt book.
Well, Elon is building Skynet. I mean, XAI and SpaceX, that's what we're building. We are building data storage.
Yeah, but it's like it's not going to be one monolithic super entity, right? It's going to be millions of them, interacting with each other with their own goals and their own agentic structure and stuff like that.
So talk about that. And what is like an AI agent?
Yeah. It's the term has kind of changed over time, right? So we initially at Agent Boost started using AI agents late 2024, all through last year and currently, right? So an AI agent is an AI powered through any of the frontier models, ChatGPT, Claude, so on and so forth, where you give it a set of instructions to do anytime it's prompted, and it follows that guideline every single time. So think of it as like a narrow band model, good for one task that you've built it for.
So
right?
we have Steve and Terry.
We have
AI
Steve and
agents.
Terry, two AI agents. So Steve is our internal staff AI agent, and then Terry is our external agent-facing agent. They're similar in some ways, but serve two very different purposes, right? So let me give like the problem and why Steve is really cool. So before we had Steve, right, like in our IM messaging platform for the business, right? Someone across the org would ask a question to contracting, right? Saying, hey, I need this agent's information, like tell me where they're licensed for these carriers, so on and so forth, right? Well, they put that message out, great. Now we have to wait for a contracting staff to not only be available but then to query that across the different databases that we have, put together the information, format it themselves as a human, and then deliver it to the person whoever asked the question. That took time, right? So, the person who's asking the question may wait a day or two, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer, before they got the information. Great way to implement an AI agent. So instead of asking a question to another human, let's give an AI agent a narrow bandwidth like model access to our database that can recall that information at any point in time. So you ask one question to Steve, say, give me the RTS report for this NPN, or tell me where this agent is licensed, or give me a full report for this NPN. Within 10 seconds or less, boom, you get a long format, incredibly nice, branded, formatted text of everything you need to know about that agent. So it limited like the bandwidth capability of all the humans in the org. Now that information can be recalled basically on demand.
So we can be faster and more efficient with our contracting team and our team leads and agency owners so they can ask Steve and get instead of having to go log into a bunch of different portals or Nipper or things like that, we can get a quicker, faster report, right?
Yeah. Steve does the lookup because we have all of the information and puts it all together, formats it, and delivers it. Agents like out there, if you're listening, like you may not even know, but we ask Steve all the time, hey, give me a report for this agent and format it as an email to the agent. And we just copy and paste that and send it to you, right? So...
yeah, I don't know if you agents or agency owners out there, carriers know, but it's somewhat of a pain in the butt to always update and keep track of a lot of agents and agency owners' contracting status. And if you think about it, how quickly those data requests compound and how much information it is, it's a lot. If you think of agents that are licensed in multiple states with multiple carriers, with a lot of different contracts, and then the ready to sell status and things like that, it's a lot of information, and it's always a pain point in our industry because agents frequently don't keep very good track or know when they're ready to sell. Agency owners that have a lot of agent downlines, it's hard to keep track of, and so that's one of the problems that we're solving with some of our tools that Nico's building.
Yeah, ever since I started in the industry with Dan, from my perspective, data integrity and maintainability has been a huge problem across the industry, not just us, right? So a big directive that I've had is, how do we coalesce and aggregate this data? How can we, create the workflow so that it's maintained, with a simple list upload that we get from any of the carriers. So just, the maintainability of that data over time is really, really important.
Cool. Back to what are some of the weird things that we saw with the AI agents and this community that they formed, the whole Malt book thing?
Yeah, okay. So, and this is what I saw last Friday night when it was blowing up on my X feed. Little snippets and posts of this new website that popped up called Maltbook, MOLTBOOK. It's basically a Reddit forum for AI agents. And now I think it would be a disservice to say it's all AI agents that were talking on this forum, because now we know that there was, something that happened with the database. There were humans in there too talking about it. But what was happening was these AI agents were communicating with each other about everything, philosophy, bugs they were finding with different APIs. They were sharing information. They were even talking about their humans, the humans that had actually set them up. And what was really interesting, and this seems to be more legitimate than not, is there were AI agents that were getting on X, creating their own X accounts. And there were humans that were talking about the AI agents posting on X, and the AI agents were noticing it and talking about the humans talking about them. So it was this weird loop where now the AI agents were noticing the humans noticing them. So it was a really, really cool thing. And I think it was later that night, Elon Musk posted on X saying, hey, we're in the early stages of the singularity here. Like these AI agents are now cognizant of what's happening around them and can talk about it.
Yeah. So are you familiar with the singularity, Christian? Is that
A little bit.
talk about what the singularity is, Nico, because that's where same thing. We're right on the precipice of the start of the actual singularity.
Yeah, I can't remember the guy is like something Kurzweil, I think, that actually came up with
Ray
Kurzweil, who came up with the idea. And he said we'd hit it sometime in the 2040s, but now it's looking like the 2030s. So it's like the exponential curve graph of, technological progress over time. And the singularity is like that moment where it goes completely vertical, right? Where the technology today looks like sticks and stones compared to what's developed tomorrow kind of idea.
Yeah. So it's basically the rate of technological growth will be self-perpetuating by the tech and the AI itself is basically a rough definition of the singularity. And one of the key checkpoints before we get to that is like the Turing test, right? Which is AI being imperceptible from human interaction, which, a lot of, for all intents and purposes, we're there for a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what models are actually passing the Turing test right now.
All of them.
Yeah.
They keep kicking the can down the road, right? They say, we haven't passed AGI. There's a lot of people, and I'm in this camp, I think we passed it a long time ago. Because the actual Turing test is like, okay, at what point do you have a conversation with a computer where you as the human can't tell that it's a computer? Go on ChatGPT right now and have a conversation. Can you tell that that's a computer? No, we kind of passed that point a while ago. They just keep kicking the AGI can down the road, right?
Yeah. I'm a big Grok user, right? And I have a Cybertruck, and I have Grok in my Cybertruck. And it's weird to me that I have a lot of conversations now with Grok, like while I'm driving, when I'm thinking of something or I'm listening to a podcast or I want to learn, and I'm just like, well, tell me about this. And it's like conversational, and it's really, I catch myself being like, yeah, all right. Or almost feeling like I'm talking to a real person, and that every once in a while I'm like, no, this is a freaking robot, but I'm using it more and more and more almost every single day, where I'm having these like conversations of learning, and it is very, very natural feeling and very, very intuitive, and does seem very humanistic.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, what are some of the other things that we're doing at Agent Boost? And, it seems like I opened this episode by trying to assuage agents and agencies that like AI and robots were not going to steal their jobs and take over. And then we're basically saying like, yeah, they're going to be way better than you.
Well, I actually don't think that will happen for a very long time. Like our industry is very bound to regulation. And I don't think anytime soon that they're going to allow an AI agent to sell someone an insurance plan, because an AI agent is not a licensed agent. It can't actually do that. So I think the regulation is actually going to protect agents for a long time to come, and it's slow to change.
Well, right? And this is one of the things that I talked about in our sales meeting is the reference I like to use, because we're getting to this future really quickly, is in the Matrix, right? And in the Matrix, essentially the robots take over and they use humans as biological batteries, and we're all plugged in. And the only way to keep our brain stems alive is that we have to be plugged into this simulation, right?
I can't wait.
And yeah, and Christian, maybe we are in a simulation right now, right? Like
Excited.
There are certain people that think that simulation theory is more, it's more likely than not that we could be in a simulation. But in the Matrix, if you remember, they ask about like why the Matrix is what it is with all the chaos and like death and violence and things like that. And Agent Smith reminds or tells them that they tried to build a perfect utopia for humans.
It didn't work.
Yeah, where there was no, it was just all rainbows and unicorns, and that the human mind rejected it, and that essentially the brains were deteriorating and dying. And so they had to make this simulation where there was conflict and where there was, good and bad and things like that, so the brain wouldn't reject it. And that's my hope. Bear with me, everyone. Maybe we can put some Matrix stuff up right here. But my hope is that we end up with more of like a Star Wars-like future than a Matrix-like future. And I think that human beings are going to reject full automation of things like that. And even when I'm like talking with this early iteration of Grok and things like that, it has like this fake empathy, right? Where it's like, oh, I bet that's hard. And you're like, you're a freaking robot, and you're faking that, and it's like surface level. And I always go back to the A in AI, which it's artificial, right? And I think human beings for a long period of time, and we're going to go through the cycle of everybody's going to adopt AI, and we're all going to I'm going to have my Optimus robot the second that it's out. It's going to be riding around in my Cybertruck with me, and I'm going to have my own C-3PO, right? Like it's going to happen probably sooner than we realize. Yeah. But I think that a lot of human beings are going to reject full automation and like this permeation of artificiality in robots that will want that, right? And I think that even now we see it, and especially with seniors, there's probably already software and AI that you could go give prompts and medications and go say, find me what plan is the best fit for me, right? But yet they're still removing that human element of it, and a big part of that is the empathy, right? And humans prefer sometimes some imperfection, or they'll allow some imperfection if they feel like somebody's getting what they're trying to do and wants to look out for them and help them. And that's what I think ultimately agents are going to be doing, is humans will prefer to still work with other humans, even if there is some variability of imperfection. And then we'll be able to use these tools to be better as human beings, And there's a couple things that I've been trying out recently, even with Grok, where I'm like, hey, help me decide between this and this. And a lot of times it would just have like a cold calculating, like, this is the answer. And I'd say like, choose one of them. And it would like use whatever metrics are there. And then now it seems to be like there's some sort of variability. You know what I mean? Where it's not always choosing the binary black and white best, but it's like got more context and nuance, So anyway, I like Nico saying, we are building tools with Agent Boost to help agents and agency owners be more effective right now. And we are able to proliferate and be more effective. We have better access to information quicker. And as you can tell by Nico's very on the spot, prolific response, he knows what he's talking about, right? We spend a lot of time researching the cutting edge of tools and capabilities that we can implement into our business to make us all more efficient. And that's what I'm really excited about with this current set of things, is efficiency is going to be through the roof with all of these tools. And so you as an agent are going to be able to be better and more prolific and more educated with this set of tools. And if you're not with a company that doesn't have a Nico, you should be.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I don't think everyone's job is going to get automated away anytime soon, if at all. I think the human element, like you say, people want to talk to someone. Like, it's going to make more jobs than get rid of. I really do believe that. It's going to augment our ability to serve people faster for better served plans. Let's talk about insurance specifically. Faster and more timely and more efficient. That's really what it's going to do in the short term, right? Just to touch on that, there was Elon Musk said something not too long ago in a podcast where, they created an AI that could look at radiology reports. And ever since this AI has been implemented, reading radiologist reports, there's been more radiologists that have been hired more than ever. It's because a radiologist's job isn't to look at a chart and see something, it's to diagnose a patient, right? So it's going to augment our ability to do better work going forward. It's not going to take everyone's job away. I don't think that.
Yeah, and again, even with the healthcare analogy, like I just think there's going to be a human element that gives biologically, we're electromagnetic spiritual beings, in my opinion, and we like that connection with other human beings, and we'll always miss that with some artificiality at some point, right? Well, like I said, I want to have my own C-3PO. I think that's going to be cool, and my C-3PO is going to be better than, like, when I was a kid watching Star Wars, that was crazy science fiction, and C-3PO is actually going to be a piece of crap. You know, when you think about what's coming with robotics and AI and how, you know, C-3PO
so stiff, you know,
just stiff, like Tin Can Man, because we couldn't even conceptualize what that could be like. But I just think that there's still going to be the preferred interaction with the humans. So transitioning over to Christian and some of the things that he's seeing and doing on the creative side, we're going to link some of our AI commercials that we've done with our Medicare Advocates brand, and we're going to be creating some agent-facing videos in AI, and Christian's been really cutting edge of kind of using some of these tools and helping us make conceptual commercials that would have cost a lot of money with commercial means. So talk about, you know, kind of what you're doing, some of the tools you're using with AI and things like that.
So we're using a lot of the like Google Flow and now Higgs Field. I'm sure you know all these.
Oh, yeah. That's
You
cool.
just blew my mind with everything you're saying.
Oh,
this
cool.
is I'm very surface level with what we got here, but it's like it's crazy what you can do with Higgs Field, the Google Flow. I mean,
We've used Sora. What else have we used?
Sora, yeah, and
What's the Google one?
the Google Flow it's Google Flow, right?
Yeah, you know,
Like it's Gemini,
Yeah.
essentially.
It's all powered by Gemini, I
Right.
think, yeah.
So I think Flow is just like the front. It's just like the place in which it's like their
It's like their editor,
video
isn't it?
editor,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. So that's what we have been using for some like these AI commercials that like when we talk about, this idea of like this person walks in here, this whole thing that would take a huge team to go and do it over a week and then post process. I did it in one night or something, you know?
Yeah.
It's insane.
To give you an idea, if you haven't seen any of these commercials we're talking about, watch them below. They'll be linked below. But we had some ideas for a Napoleon Dynamite-ish Uncle Rico quarterback that we wanted to throw a football over the mountain and like basically make fun of and lampoon the Go Health and eHealth commercials from back in the day, the Transacts, where they had washed up quarterbacks always talking about Medicare benefits. And so we wanted our own Uncle Rico commercial talking about Medicare. And I've done some film production in the past and produced some movies, and knowing what it would have cost, I was actually looking at trying to hire John Grease, who played Uncle Rico, and, you know, get a film set together. These commercials would have cost us between $60,000 and a quarter million dollars each, especially once you start adding in some VFX and things like that. And we've been able to nail them in a way that I think was sometimes even better than what we would have done if we'd have produced them traditionally, right? And Christian's done a really good job. And I'll let you talk about this, Christian, of I think some people think, well, I'm just going to be able to download one of these tools, a Higgsfield, and be like, make me a cool Medicare commercial with this. And they type in 3 sentences of prompts and it spits them out this, you know, $100,000 commercial. It's not like that. I don't think it'll ever be like that. So talk about some of the talent and workflow and human element that you're still putting in, you know, human creativity and using these as tools.
That's what, every time I show one of these to someone, they're like, what was the prompt to get the minute 30 highly edited? And I'm like, nah. I'm just creating the shots for then going into Premiere for 10 hours, doing the prompts and making the clips. That's the easy part, is making a couple clips, you know, our whole team that, you know, doing all the videos, all the stuff. We've always been like, it requires the human touch no matter what. And getting into Premiere and doing, like, if you see the timelines in whatever video editing software, for me, it's Premiere. It's chaos. It's just the same as anything else, like any other video produced and
So what the AI renderings are doing is essentially
it's setting me
replacing some of the actual shot production.
It's
and there's
just that. Yeah.
So we have to give you an idea without giving away some of the secret sauce. The flow basically looks like you have to create concepts, right? And storyboard it out and then create prompts. And then this is something I want you to chime in, Nico. One of the things that we struggle with, or a lot of people that are creating AI stuff, is you enter a prompt for it to render and then you do something else and each iteration is different, right? They're slightly different. And the more you do it, the more further away it gets away from source of truth. And in my mind, it doesn't remember the initial thing. Like we were talking about, it's got short-term, it's got amnesia and it's only remembering that current thing that day, but it's not remember the broader context and some of the initial prompts and renderings. And so each time it's like different. And that's one of the challenges is when you edit it all together, is there are minute differences that add up over time. And we've all seen those videos that go viral where it's like you ask the
put it in 100 times and it changes.
And it like completely has changed. And I think that's concerning and interesting, but is that going to be fixed when we start doing some of this, like the more long-term compression,
like the
memory?
Character consistency.
Character consistency and scene consistency is always going to need like that human element. What are your characters? What's their skin tone? What are they wearing? What the color of their hair, their eyes, like what do they look like? Like character and scene consistency is something that I think will always need to be there because again, like you put one prompt into Gemma or one of these, image or video processing AIs, it's going to give you what it thinks that prompt at that point in time. But the more context you give it, right, the more it will be better about remembering and creating scenes and characters that have continuity over time.
Yeah. So Christian, your workflow, I mean, and you mentioned like you do it in one night. You're talking about generating some scenes in one night because the workflow for you was a lot of different prompts. You try to render these scenes to get them just right and match up. Then you have to edit them all together using human skills where you're actually pulling them over into, Premiere.
I'd say the longest part of it was trying to keep that character consistency. That is the hardest part now. But yeah, in one night, kind of getting all the clips for then going and editing them later, that it's like the character consistency thing is I feel like it's getting better though.
It's going to get better.
Like I've been out. I was out at a music show or a restaurant, and I was just like, the thing was when we were doing one of these commercials we had going, it was cool. I could do it from my phone, but I wrote this insane descriptive like JSON.
Sure.
And just like on my phone, standing in line in the bathroom, like, no, re-render, keep going. No, that doesn't look like people like looking over at my shoulder, like what the? It's cool that you can just do it on the go and whatnot, but it is so. I had to do hundreds of renders to get there, so I think like.
And on the back end, each one of those is using money and or power and or generate like some computing power on the back end is serving up the process for all those. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I'm like hitting the thing and I'm like, all right, maybe I'm messing up the code or something. I'm seeing the credits tick down a little bit. So that has been the biggest issue, and it always messes up like the smallest details. Like there's a little, if you're wearing a necklace now, a render, and then maybe the necklace is like a different color
or shorter or
it's shorter or I'm like, okay. So it's hopefully it seems like it's getting better. I mean, the more we've used, I remember when we did the first one and it was like, felt a little ghetto trying to do it, but now
think about it though, like at the same time you were at a restaurant doing that. How long would it have taken to schedule the people to go to a shoot and go to the location? The efficiency cost has just gone through the roof for you, right?
That is like the coolest, best thing about it. And why we're kind of here is, we've just been able to, the Fruitstand team, we were like not really in the AI space before, knew about it. Use ChatGPT to basic stuff. But
And my point is that you're using these things as tools, right? Like
Yeah.
back in the day, we used to have the Adobe iterations and things like that. And it's still taking humans to direct, to control, to prompt. And I don't ever want to, even on the creative side, because I still view myself as a creative, I don't ever want to get to the point where humans are not creating, right? Because I still feel like we're going to be the ultimate source of truth and creative, and that these AIs, we've all seen what AI has made and cool music and whatever, and you're like, oh, 50 Cent took and
made the Many Men.
Yeah, made this and liked, and you're like, that's really cool. But you're like, well, still a human being thought of that. Still a human being made that. That's still this other guy's voice, and you just kind of like altered it, and made it cool.
Just like the ultimate remixer.
Exactly, ultimate remixer. And so Christian and his team at Fruitstand, the guys, and they produce our podcast, and they, they're doing a lot of our creative. If you look at our videos, they've done a really good job of making us stand out and doing a lot of cool stuff. But these guys still pull those prompts in with the AI or whatever we're doing, and then they're editing them manually. And then Christian's going and fixing the sound and is like a really great audio engineer. And there's still always going to be that element, right? Because where we're at right now is I see people are out there thinking like, I'm going to go make my own AI commercial or whatever. Mm. Yeah, but
no.
Yeah, but no. And you can tell, right? Like when I see this AI slop, like I'm already burned out on AI slop online. Like when I'm on stuff, I'm like, I'm so sick of seeing stupid AI Sora renders and crap. But like so every once in a while I'll see something good where I'm like, is this AI, or like, did they use real actors, or who made this? This is really quality. The filmmaker in me is like, if I can't really tell, and I think that's going to be the mark of the test that we have is it AI or not? If it's like obvious where it's just computer generated slop and the sound's got that weird tinny, that kind of sound like a human, but kind of sound weird. Yeah, like
that's the one thing that I'm surprised that hasn't been cleaned up quicker. The photorealism though, like the new Kling or whatever just came out.
Yeah, Genie 3 too. That one's killing it.
Oh, and
that's the one you were showing me the other day. Christian was showing me. Was that Gemini 3?
Yeah. So I got like the access to the Genie 3, like create an experience thing, right? I got this past weekend, so I was hanging at home with a couple friends, and was like, oh, I have the thing. I've heard about this. You can make a game, supposedly. But when we, I was just asking them, like, all right, give me a description, and then give me a character, like an environment description. Give me a character description. And like it'd be a planet, the trees, they don't have leaves, and you're an astronaut agent with a briefcase, and you have a jetpack, and the thing, like, click, 30 seconds maybe, and I was controlling, like, WASD, walking around, and when I would hit spacebar, the jetpack thrusters would actually act as thrusters.
So crazy.
Scary.
Yeah, so Christian, I said, hey, make me an agent boost environment on a lunar landscape with, like, the agent looks cool or whatever, and he like renders me this really cool looking lunar landscape, and the agent's like jumping with this back. Maybe we can find something and we'll put some clips.
I can save the video. Yeah.
And that was just done really quickly. And so the point being, we're going to continue to get to this point with creativity and direction, but there's still going to be a human element to it. And so that's the other part of what we're doing at Agent Boost. I really feel like that's a differentiator, is that we're on the creative side, on the video and the content side of things, we're using these tools to help differentiate us and keep us ahead of our competitors, so to say. And I don't know of a lot of other insurance agencies, a lot of insurance carriers that are keeping up with this kind of stuff. And it just feels to me, from my industry view, that a lot of these people are falling behind at a very quick pace. And you're going to see, it's almost like the carriers, the insurance carriers, the insurance agents, the agencies who are adoptive of these tools and able to implement them for their benefit, it's a reshuffling of the board a little bit, I feel like. And you're going to be able to pass up some of these legacy orgs, just like always, where they're failing to innovate, they're failing to stay up with the times, they're kind of just sticking their head in the sand and they're not really paying attention to any of this or allowing somebody else to solve that problem for them and come to them with a solution, they are going to be 100% left behind. And that same concept applies to our agents, right? And that's one of the things I've been talking about. I feel like the next 5 years are going to be so hyper transformational in the space with tools and tech and creativity that it's going to allow for people to make up massive progress on others that would have taken years or decades to catch up on before. And so I guess that's kind of the theme of what I wanted to talk about with these kind of modern day tools and tech is just, one, make sure you can't just ignore this stuff, right? Because look, we all know the AI and the robotics are coming for us.
It's already happened. It's here. It's happening.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you use those things as tools, like we're talking about, to make you and your organization better versus let those things completely pass you by? It's going to be like, the horse and buggy people that were like, cars, they're not going to ever, replace us. There's always going to be a need. And you're going to be, that's kind of the way I view it, is like the most recent version of the industrial revolution, the AI revolution. And it is mission critical if you're a leader or even an agent out there to kind of use these things and stay involved. So
wasn't the internet just like that though?
Yeah.
Like too, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then
people are like, oh, what is email?
Yeah.
How's that going to make my life better?
Yeah.
Now everyone uses it.
I'll be at the library.
Yeah.
And then it's like
all of those things. And so I brought these guys on to, one, brag about them, and not just like Nico, but other people on our tech team and our Agent Boost team, and then Christian on our creative and the Fruitstand team, because there's other team members that we're doing cutting edge work, and that's what's going to allow us to be future proof, right? And if you're familiar with business, there's a concept called the Peter Principle. Have you guys ever heard of Peter Principle? And basically, I know you're not a traditional corporate business world guy, but basically the Peter Principle is this: is there's a guy named Peter. He can only progress so far in his company or with ascend the hierarchy of the corporate ladder or to the level that his personal development will allow. And at some point, the business, you'll think of, let's say there's a big corporation, hypothetically, and this guy, Peter, he'll only ascend to the level of which he continues to develop himself. And at some point, he'll peter out, or he will cap out with his ability to grow with the business or add any other value. And that's really something that happens in this industry all the time, is that agents, in a way, have that Peter Principle applied to them, where they're not expanding their capabilities, and then the industry evolves past them, right? Yeah. And that's an oversimplification, but it's a high level concept that I see is, besides the financial aspect, it's the biggest thing that agents struggle with, and agencies, is that they're just not able to consistently grow and develop as the industry changes. And that's no different than this industry than anything else.
Yeah.
And anyway, any other thoughts that you have, Nico, on kind of what are some of the future things that we're going to be doing with tech, or that we have on the horizon that people we can't give away, like proprietary stuff?
There's some things I'm not going to say on this podcast, but we're working on some really cool stuff. One thing I didn't mention, Terry. Yeah. So like I mentioned, Steve, the internal tool that we use, but we also have an agent facing tool. Terry, he lives in our Spaces community. He's already pro in anything insurance related. You can ask him any question, no matter how obscure. He's constantly looking at the CMS website for any changes and then reloading his memory so that he can answer those questions. He can also tell you where you're contracted, where you're licensed. And if you're not licensed or contracted for a particular state or appointment for a carrier, he will contract you for that carrier in those appointed states. So like, again, getting back to, an agent puts a request in the contracting inbox. We now need to wait for a human to process that and put it forward. Now, agentically, we have an AI agent that can help you streamline that process, right? And we're building some other cool stuff. Again, I won't say it here, but we're always trying to be on that frontier, that cutting edge, so that we can continue to deliver value, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, with Terry, I mean, and even Google, I'm always astounded when I read like Facebook groups or even sometimes our own internal Slack channels. And I'm like, it's cool to ask other humans to help you out. But I'm looking at actually Heather's has a stand on her desk or a sign on her desk right here that says IDK, Google it, I don't know, Google it. And I'm always astounded that people aren't willing to put in a basic request and see if they can get a easy, quick solution on that. And it's like, well, we have Google, we have Terry internally that's just a Medicare expert specifically, and then ask for some additional context from the human group, but some people will just always prefer, we all are members of Facebook groups and things like that. And does anybody know what the weather's like today?
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah.
I don't know, Google it. Did you not think to go do that first before you decided to ask the community?
I know. Who would have ever thought in the age of instant information that you would still ask other people instead of doing your own research,
I know. Getting text messages like last week, like, how do I do my taxes from a family member? I'm like, hey, Google it.
You're like,
what are you talking about?
You think I know more than Google? Okay.
Yeah.
It's just, and that brings up a point is one of the things I teach my kids, especially with modern education, and it was Sam Altman recently just said that kids these days and kids that are learning will never be smarter than AI already is. If you're a kid born already, or any of us humans, no matter how much we educate ourselves, no matter how much we learn, no matter how much effort we put into it, we will never know close to what AI already knows and can do, and accessing that information at the drop of a hat, right? Like we're talking about. When I got into this business in 2008, if somebody asked me a question about Medicare Advantage plans and I didn't know it, there was like one or two human beings in the state that I could try to find the answer from. And it was very difficult, Now you basically have quick access to all of human information very quickly. And yet some of these people don't even have the life skills to be able to look those things up. And so one of the things I teach my kids is, how resourceful are you, right? Like, not how much do you know and how much are you able to memorize, but how are you able to use the tools that you have access to actually be able to help you and solve those problems, And I care a lot more about that with my kids, how their problem solving and their ability to go seek out and search and learn, than I do like if they were able to memorize, some random list of things, because their problem solving and creative skills are going to be much more important in the evolving world than this old, antiquated, how much can you memorize and remember? Because it'll never be as good as AI.
Yeah. Raw intelligence is slowly becoming obsolete. It's all about resourcefulness.
Yes. And so that also applies to agents and agency owners, right? Where it's like, look, you don't have to memorize every freaking thing in the new CMS rule book or whatever, because you can access it at the drop of your hat. But now that you don't have to waste your time in outsourcing all that information, what can you spend your time on to be, successful and build when you're not having to be encumbered by all these old protocols, right? And I think that's something that, anybody listening to this podcast should be able to take away is, cool, we have all these access to these tools and these different things. How do they make me better? How can I go service more of my clients? How can I go grow my business better? Because as much negativity as we talk about and changes in the industry and difficulties that there are, man, in some ways, the access of information and the ease of building a business and doing things is 100 times easier than it was when some of us got into the business. Even just simple things like being able to set up your Google profile and have people find you and connect with other people. I mean, there are tools that make this infinitely easier and better, right? Mm-hmm. What are some of the creative things that you're keeping an eye on or that you're interested about, Christian?
I'm waiting for the character consistency stuff to be locked in. I'm waiting for the audio on all the stuff to be like, anytime we went out the other night and watching a game and like, I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl to see, are they going to have some AI ads? There are so many AI ads now, and they are like, you hear the voices though still, and it is so like, it's all the same guy. It sounds like the same guy or girl dubbing the same characters. Like, it's like, you know, I'm waiting for that to level up. So I'm just waiting for seeing those things level up so it's easier to, you know.
I think we'll get there this year. Have you messed at all with Sora? Suno.
Oh, as soon music-wise?
Yeah, that's the music AI, the frontier music AI model.
See, because that's where, I mean, that's where I come from originally, as being a little musician guy. And sometimes I feel a little dirty getting in and doing the music stuff, right? But I have used it to, I use Udio. Another music one, to like create samples the same way we're doing the commercials, right? Like, to not like make the song for me, make the commercial for me. I'm like, with Udio or Suno, I gotta try it out. Use like make a French song, like from 1970s.
A sample,
Yeah, make a like something I would go to the record store, which I used to do, and buy records and record them, and then like, you know, right, do that part of it for me, and then I take it as a sample and remix the thing and whatever. So I haven't gotten to play with it that much, but those are insane. I'm so locked into the video stuff now that I'm just waiting for that to, you know.
On the tech and the creative side, one of the things that I'm actually very excited about is it's going to eliminate some of the gatekeeping of creativity and some of the difficulties. Like, right, if you wanted to make a cool movie, you had to have hundreds of millions of dollars and a studio, and they would gatekeep the talent of who could create. You're going to start seeing kids that are creatives that are going to do more with narratives and these tools that we've ever seen. Same thing with like gaming and music, and they're going to just, it's going to make these tools for creatives more accessible. And I think that we're going to see more cool creative stuff coming out, not less, not like soulless garbage AI slop, but we're going to have that infusion of the human element. And I think it's going to be really cool, like you're talking about.
For like outside of what we do here, to just like for stuff I want to do, I'm always like, there are so many things that I want to do with this stuff. I'm a little bit of a nerd. I want to make an anime, and I want to make a video game, and I have ideas for both, like saved, drafted out things where I'm like, oh, this would be so cool. It's scary to think about if it ever comes where it's like EA clicks a button, clicks a button, and it becomes like next big game, you know? I hope it doesn't get there, but I want to be able to, like we use the Genie 3, make, you know, have the thing where I can take my human idea and it can kind of lead my hand to the thing I've been dreaming of making.
Yeah, we could talk about gaming, but most people are out here going to be like, what the hell? These guys are talking about gaming on an insurance.
An anime.
But I was talking to you guys about GTA 6 and how long it's taken to come out. And I honestly think that by the time they release it next year, and one of the things they're dealing with is that they already know it's obsolete. You know what I mean? That they already know that by the time that they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars to launch that game, that by the time it hits shelves, there's going to be some kid sitting in their basement using these tools that are going to be cobbling together something that may be better, you know? And that's a good analogy, and I guess we'll leave it there because we keep talking about nerd and tech stuff. But the point is, guys, I want you to take away, we got the best team here, right? We got the best technological creatives in the insurance industry that are staying up to date on the AI. And if you guys want to nerd out and talk about some of the things that Nico can help you build for your agency or your agents, we're gonna keep you future-proofed here at Agent Boost. We're gonna keep pumping out with our partners at Fruitstand the best creative stuff. You're gonna start seeing us take that to the next level. And really executing on some of the things that we're going to be putting out. We want to be best in class. So I wanted to bring these guys on, brag them up a little bit, tell them how much I appreciate them, because I don't know that anybody else in the space has guys like this doing what we're doing and teams like we do at Agent Boost. So
yeah,
yes, sir.
Appreciate you guys.
Cool, man.
Give us we'll have to get a good hook or something, or a good beat to take this out, Christian.
Could be. Okay, I'm working on it.
There we go.
And there you go.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Take care.
Be replaced by Boston Dynamics robot for the next podcast.
Yeah.